The movie begins when a middle-aged man, Greg Whittle, draws sketches of distant places and figures that seem to be a part of his imagination. He works in a call center. He is not invested in his job and spends his time drawing sketches. His phone rings. He receives the call. It is his daughter Emily's call. She invites him to her graduation ceremony. Greg expresses his pride in Emily's graduation and agrees to attend the ceremony, but suggests taking her and her brother Arthur out the next day instead of attending the dinner celebration with her mom. Greg's boss, Bjorn, calls him for a meeting, and he tries to lay it off. When Greg gets fired, Greg barely reacts, but then suddenly shoves Bjorn, who falls backward and cracks his head on his desk. Dies. He hides the body behind the window curtain and leaves the office. He goes to a nearby bar where Isabel watches him carefully. She reaches her arm out, and nothing happens to Greg. She tells him he's real since he wasn't affected by her powers. She demonstrates with a wave of her arm that she can move objects with a wave of her hand. She is a mysterious woman who appears to know exactly what he has done. She seems like the lady in his drawing. She invites him to sit down. She believes the world is a simulation, approaches Greg and claims he is like her, introducing the idea that they can manipulate their surroundings. She reveals that the world they are in is not real and that she feels responsible for its existence. She offers to help him out of his situation in exchange for retrieving an amulet from her ex-boyfriend. She says that this amulet contains special yellow crystals that allow them to manipulate the world. She sends Greg to retrieve it from a man in the bathroom. He retrieves the amulet and returns it to Isabel, who is pleased and suggests they get drinks with the man in the bathroom's wallet. Isabel demonstrates her ability to manipulate objects telekinetically. She uses this power to make Greg's boss's death appear like a suicide, covering Greg's tracks. After leaving the bar, Isabel leads Greg to a tented area in a homeless shelter, which becomes their temporary hideout. This place looks illegal. They start to live together in this makeshift home. Greg finds out that no foul play was suspected in his boss Bjorn's death, and he feels a sense of relief. She shows Greg the crystal's ability to manipulate reality. Isabel teaches Greg how to use the yellow crystals to perform mind tricks, such as lighting candles with a lighter from a distance and blowing them out. Greg shares his drawings with Isabel, which he has made of his dream home and a town that he sees clearly in his mind. He shows her the photo of the woman, and Isabel says it is of her and of their real life outside of this world. They share a kiss. On the other side, Emily goes to his brother's apartment. She is worried about Greg, who is experiencing what appears to be a mental health crisis, and she wants her brother Arthur to help her find him. Arthur, who has a strained relationship with their father, is hesitant to get involved. He reminds Emily of Greg's past injuries and suggests his current state is just another excuse for drug use. Despite Arthur's refusal, Emily goes off on her own to find their father. Isabel and Greg ingest more yellow crystal and go rollerblading, using their powers to knock people over and experience a sense of freedom and excitement. Greg and Isabel grow closer, sharing intimate moments and exploring the limits of their perception. Greg gets arrested by the police after a chaotic encounter at a roller rink where he and Isabel use their telekinetic powers to trip a bully. This scene showcases their special abilities after consuming yellow crystals. The arrest marks a turning point in Greg's journey, highlighting his growing disconnection from reality. Eventually, they are released from jail. Emily's attempts to reconnect with Greg catalyze his journey towards recovery and reconnection with reality. Isabel tells Greg to go ahead without her into a restaurant, and then he sees her get into a car as a prostitute and leave. Arthur witnesses his father looking homeless and unable to buy food because he has no money. Isabel and Greg's escapades are short-lived as they soon realize they are running low on crystals. Isabel suggests they get more, leading them to seek out her ex-boyfriend. Isabel goes to her ex-boyfriend's house to take more crystal. Greg is waiting for Isabel outside. While he is waiting outside, Emily finds Greg on the street and begs him to come with her, but he says he needs to wait for Isabel. He says he's excited about her graduation, and she tells him it was 2 weeks ago. She writes her phone number on a graduation picture and leaves it with him. Isabel sees them from the window. When Emily goes back, Isabel comes outside and asks who she is. He tells she is his daughter. Isabel insists Emily is not real. After that, she and Greg are harassed by a threatening man. Greg consumes multiple crystals and crushes the man's van with his telekinetic powers, then he throws up. They go to Isabel's tent. The next morning, when Greg awakens, Isabel is not there. He takes all the sketches and his daughter's picture. He calls his daughter, but only gets her voicemail. When he returns to the tented area, Isabel freaks out that she didn't know where he was. She is furious that he tried to see his daughter and is devastated that he is buying into the illusion of the fake world. She feels like he's going to drag her down with him. He says maybe they should stop spending time together. She says they're soulmates, and he says that her scenario of only her knowing who's real has forced him to depend on her, and he doesn't believe in her. He wants proof that this is all real. She acquiesces and pulls out some rare blue crystals that can transport them to a blissful reality. Though frightened, Greg takes the crystals. They are short on the required number of crystals, but still go ahead with their plan. As soon as Greg takes in the crystals through a strange metal device, he is transported to a laboratory where he is connected to a thought visualizer. He wakes up in a room with about 10 people in chairs plugged into a giant water tank with brains. Isabel tells him that these are the only people in the simulation who are real. The two of them go to lunch in this new, beautiful, utopian future world, which includes Greg's dream home. However, everyone seems to know Greg as Dr. Whittle. Greg has no memory of this world. Isabel says it will wear off. Greg decides he doesn't care if his memory never comes back because he's so excited to discover this new world. They live in a seaside home, surrounded by supportive friends and engaging in creative pursuits. They interact with wealthy people at parties. In other words, Emily is still looking for her father. A doctor named Chris informs Greg that rumors are circulating that there are issues with Isabel's research. Greg tells Isabel to publish her research now because he's not going back in the BrainBox simulation. She agrees, but only if she can interview him on stage. Isabel brings Greg on stage and asks him how he feels and if he has any complaints. He feels great and is very happy. She plays an interview with him from before he went into the simulation, where he is surly and frustrated with life's small annoyances. She asks him if he's lacking anyone in his life right now, and he sees a hologram of Emily in the crowd, but he says no. In the original interview, he says there is someone missing. Isabel concludes her research by saying that a once frustrated man is now joyous and thrilled about life. Afterward, Isabel is received extremely positively at a reception. The reception later is sieged by angry protesters and devolves into fighting and mass chaos. Greg continues to see Emily's hologram and follows it, where it becomes non-holographic. He asks how she can be real. She tells him he isn't thinking clearly. She gives him the yellow crystal she found at his campsite and tells him that eventually he will need to choose between worlds. Greg takes the yellow crystal and uses his powers to defuse the protesters, and he and Isabel race to the lab as the world around them continues morphing between the two worlds. Isabel theorizes that they must have brought the simulation into the real world and that they need to go back into the simulation and take 10 blue crystals each to stop it. Greg and Isabel enter the real world by using the metal device and wake up in the homeless encampment in the pouring rain. They go to the bar to find Isabel's boyfriend, Kendo, to take crystal. She asks the people about Kendo. She says they want 20 blue crystals. Instantly, Greg finds his boss, Bjorn, alive and freaks out. Isabel tells Greg they rebooted him. Isabel and Greg rob a dude for his wallet and have more money to buy blues from a man named Kendo. Isabel pulls a gun from the glove compartment, shoots her supplier, and takes the crystals. Meanwhile, Emily goes to Arthur and says she got a call that Greg was panhandling outside of his old office. The police follow Greg and Isabel to the tented area and surround them. Isabel says there are only enough crystals for one person to return to the real world. Greg tells Isabel to kill him and that they will meet each other back in the real world. But then, somewhat abruptly, he changes his mind. He says he loves the unpredictable simulation world that Isabel has created and that he won't leave it. Emily arrives, screaming for her dad, but is held back by the police. Isabel realizes Greg is still attached to Emily, and he apologizes. He gives her the crystals, and she leads the police toward her so Greg can escape. She then takes the blue crystals. Greg flees and goes to a rehab clinic. At a group meeting, he presents the photo of his daughter and says, "This woman says she's my daughter, and I believe her." The final scene of the movie shows Greg meeting up with his daughter with flowers that he found on the side of the road. She hugs him. Greg chooses to face his problems, reconnect with his daughter, and find the meaning in his own life.